Hi. So as part of Civil Spirit program, we'll be looking at 5 topics for current affairs today. We'll be starting with the data security or data privacy issue due to the issue between Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. Then a very small snippet on eTribes India program. What is the importance of the program and why it is in play? Then we'll be moving to the procedure for impeachment of Chief Justice of India. Why is the procedure so complex and what is the importance of it? Then a small snippet on APEDA again in prelims perspective. Then in mains perspective, we'll be looking at what is the importance of the new vehicle scrap policy which has been proposed by the government of India. Now, you have the concept of prophecies throughout world history. When Michael Faraday was asked when electricity was discovered, what is the importance of that? He said that I do not know any practical applications of electricity, but I do know that in future you'll definitely have to tax this particular commodity. Now, similar to that, we had a very important historian, Yuval Noah Harari, making a very important prophecy in the former World Economic Forum Summit, which completed in few months back. He went on to say that in the modern age, when too many of the machines became concentrated in too few hands, humanity split into two classes, capitalist and proletariat. Now, if too much of data, note the word again, when too much of data concentrated in too few hands, humanity was split not into classes, but into different species. We certainly hope and sincerely hope that it doesn't happen. The issue which we are to discuss today is regarding this. A data mining firm, Cambridge Analytica, has allegedly obtained user information against Facebook norms for monetary gains. Now, before we go into depths of the issue, we just have a few basics on what is necessary for understanding the depths of app installation. Most of you who use smartphones, you install the application, and most of the time it says the application is free, but you're not actually getting the application free of cost. You trade a very important thing, that is data. Every time you install an application which is said to be free, you are trading data. Like, we never read the terms and conditions. Once we install it, ask for a few terms and conditions, then we immediately click accept, and a lot of data is being transferred, like without our knowledge. And second thing regarding data storage and data access, all our browsing history and everything is being monitored by the social tech giants like Amazon, Google, Facebook, and so and so. So these are the fundamentals. Now let's go to the issue. What exactly happened? How was weak norms in Facebook exploited by one particular app developer? Now, This Is Your Digital Life was an application which was designed by a Cambridge intern, who goes by the name of Alexander Cohen. Now, this application is about a personality quiz. It was downloaded by close to 270,000 people. Now, you ask me what is the relationship between an individual application and Facebook? Well, here is it. Now, until the year 2014, Facebook had a very liberal interface. It did not have strict rules. What Facebook enabled before 2014 was any app developer, like our Alexander Cohen we are talking about, he could access all the data of Facebook if you're using Facebook on your mobile phone. So what essentially happened was not just the information which you were personally, intentionally sharing in your app also got transferred. At the same time, all the information which you had been doing in Facebook, your likes, your friends, the people whom you follow, all this information was scrolled up and taken by this application. The problem is it doesn't stop here. After he obtained all the information, he transferred all the info to a company called Cambridge Analytica. And this company is a data mining firm. And you know what people do in data mining. They get all the data, and based on the data they got, like the likes you've done, the people whom you follow, they create something called this psychographic profiling. They decide what type of personality you could be, and they could exploit it for advertising. And it is believed that this company, which was part of Donald Trump's presidential campaign, which enabled him to win the presidency in the year 2016 in November, this particular company was heavily involved in political advertising. Now, the issue is not to deal with the elections of the US governments, but to actually discuss about how data can be exploited by an individual developer and how unsafe the norms are. Now we're going to look at what are the problems and challenges to India and how Indian government is to have a data protection law which will combat it. Now, regarding the challenges to India, now after this incidents happened, like we immediately had a response. A notice was sent to Cambridge Analytica by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, demanding information whether the data which was mined from Indians was exploited for any other purpose. Now, American firms, most of the social tech giants, you have Google, Amazon, Facebook, most of them are actually situated in America. And when American firms located in the United States, their US entities, if there is a diplomatic conflict or any flare between the United States and any other country, especially India, in terms of national interest, the US could cause those companies to reveal all the data about the Indian citizens or whichever will be detrimental to our national interest, but which is good for the US. And third thing, now you clearly saw in the situation that what the developer did was against Facebook norms. You do not take the information, and even if the procedure for taking the information was allowed, it was not allowed to be dispersed to a third party, which was clearly against norms. But what if Facebook intentionally itself, for the sake of money, had divulged all our information to others? Now, social tech giants do say that our data is safe, but what if it is not? That is a question we need to look into. So keeping these in mind, we'll have to decide if you're going to have a data protection policy, what are the important things which the Indian government needs to consider, and how we should be dealing with this particular issue in other perspectives also. Now, as you clearly know, the data protection legislation for India is still something in process, but we can definitely take cue from the European Union. This thing which you see here, General Data Protection Regulation of European Union. Now, this phenomenon was passed in the European Parliament in the year 2016. It will be implemented in May 2018. Now, it's a very comprehensive legislation which balances the need of the industry and the data privacy of citizens and tries to find a center point in which the needs of both are protected. It has very wide applicability. That is the data protection regulations which has been mentioned in this particular white paper is not just regulated to firms which are situated in the European Union, but also firms outside the European Union and also the individuals. So whoever it is, they'll have to stick to the regulations. And if they don't stick to the regulations, hefty penalty, up to 4% of the global turnover of the companies can be imposed by the European Union. Now, there are a lot of important articles which are very much appreciable in this particular white paper. And one of the important things is the right to be forgotten. If an individual feels that his data needs to be erased completely from the digital domain, he can ask the particular entity to remove the data. This is a very progressive legislation. At the same time, they have a few more articles like mentioning the breach notification. If the data of a particular private firm, the secretive data of a particular private firm got from individuals has been stolen or has been hacked, the company has to inform to the public in a span of less than 72 hours. Now, we've seen what happened with the Yahoo company a few months back, when most of the information of the users who were using Yahoo were taken out. And the Yahoo company came out pretty late. They came to know of it pretty late. But breach notification tells to the company that they need to reveal it in a lesser span of time. Now, apart from the legislation, we'll need to look at other domains in which India can combat this data protection or data security issues. First thing is regulation. Having Indian servers so that we'll be able to enable them to follow Indian laws. As we've already seen, most of the US firms have their servers in the United States and we're not able to regulate them. And the terms of diplomacy. Now, we see that there is a private diplomatic agreement between the United States and the European Union government, and it says that all the data of European Union which is stored in the United States will be protected. Now, this is more of a bilateral agreement between, you can say it's a multilateral agreement formed between an organization and the United States. So you clearly see that India could also push for such agreements to prevent the data of Indians which is stored there. And finally, learning from China. Now, China's internet is not exactly internet. They have a great firewall in which most of the data which comes from the outside, you have a set of complex filters. Only few information gets inside China. Information which is not conducive to the national government of China, the Communist Party of China, is not allowed to be viewed by the public. Because of so many restrictions, Chinese companies themselves became tech giants. For example, we use Google. They are very much, they use Beidou. We have Twitter, they have Weibo. So Chinese companies prospered in this particular regulation. So this is one more idea which we can take from China and improve as part of our Make in India program, where Indian social tech giants could be enabled to prosper. So as far as data protection or enabling a data protection policy is concerned in Main's perspective, with respect to this issue, we've seen how legislation can be ensured, how regulations can be ensured, and of course, how diplomacy and learning from China can enable us to protect the data of our citizens from private companies and enable the government to have better regulation. Moving to the next topic. Now, the topic is regarding E-Tribes program. Now, before we go into the E-Tribes program, we'll just see what exactly is the organization TRIFED. Now, when you study a specific organization, always keep in mind, just scratch the surface. Find the initial objective of the organization. That itself will tell you what is the mandate of the organization, what it is supposed to do, and what it is not supposed to do. So you clearly find the mandate, so there will not be any confusion on which ministry does it come under or what function does it operate. So you clearly see it is for promoting and marketing tribal products within the country and abroad. Now, it also conducts a National Tribal Craft Expo called as Adi Mahotsav. This is important in terms of prelims. And of course, it comes under the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Nothing magical here, pretty straightforward. Now, the news was they had launched an e-commerce platform. Now, as you can clearly see, the objective of TRIFED is marketing tribal products. And they've been doing it through retail outlets. They have close to 31 retail outlets in India. And you know that e-commerce has exploded in India in the last 10 years. So they have used e-commerce also, but through different outlets. But what they've done is they've opened their own e-commerce website, www.tribesindia.com. So you could definitely visit the website. There are pretty interesting products here. The design is very good. So they are improving their reach. They'll be able to reach a lot of people to enable better monetary gains so that the livelihoods of tribals is vastly improved. It's a very welcome measure. Before we go to the next topic, since we have talked about TRIFED, there are two more areas which we can discuss. First is minor forest produce. Now, TRIFED is, you can say it is enabled the authority of looking after minor forest produce. Now, what do we mean by minor forest produce? You know that timber or wood is the most important product which is obtained from forests. But apart from that, non-timber forest produce is also important. You can talk from honey to lac, etc. There are so many products. And it provides livelihood to close to 100 million people. So how is TRIFED in fact? Like it is preventing the influence of middlemen from exploiting the tribals. So tribals need to get fair share of their income, fair share of the products which they consume. So TRIFED provides them an opportunity in procurement of minor forest produce, selling them outside and giving them a fair share. That is very important. Kindly note, the reason why we are so focused on minor forest produce is that not just the population, also in terms of gender equality. Because most of the individuals who are involved in collecting minor forest produce is women. So in that particular case, it is very important. Then coming to the concept of minimum support price. Now this concept is similar to how we have in agriculture. Like most of the minor forest produce, the commodities which you see here are perishable. You do not have infrastructure facilities which enables people to store it for a longer time. At the same time, you do not have marketing facilities also. So because of these, you want to assure the particular tribal community that for a specific product, governments will guarantee a specific price, irrespective of the conditions. So that is your minimum support price. You have the same concept in agriculture also, the perishability, the infrastructure facilities idea. Now, before we move to the next topic, just a very minor comparison between the MSP of the tribal affairs and the MSP for agriculture. So for agriculture products, it is CACP. That will be the authority which will be recommending to the government on what has to be done. And MSP for minor forest produce will be recommended by the pricing cell of TRIFED. So that is one thing you need to keep in mind, because each authority is specialized in different ways and hence they are involved in different functions. Now, talking about the impeachment of Chief Justice of India. Now, this issue has again resurfaced. So the one thing which we'll be dealing here is, of course, we'll be talking about the procedure of the impeachment of CJI. But most importantly, why is the procedure so complex? That will be the reason we'll try to identify. Because when it comes to polity, the information related to articles is directly given in the Constitution of India and in textbooks. But the most important thing you need to understand is that each and every article has a logic. Why is it so complex or why is it so simple in some cases? So once you understand the logic, then you can definitely work out the reasoning behind eliminating options in prelims when they give you a 3-statement question or 4-statement question, how to work things around. Now, to jumpstart, CJI is the Chief Justice of India, is the highest office, highest authority in judiciary in India, which is dealing with disputes. And you know that judiciary is the authority in India which shields the citizens from the authority of the executive and the legislature, the people who make laws and the people who form part of the government. So you need to make sure that the judiciary is given the highest level of protection so that the citizens are also saved and the independence of the judiciary is protected, because the independence of the judiciary is extremely important so that justice is served. If the judiciary is functioning or if it is conducive to the policies of legislature and executive always, then justice will not be meted out to people. That is the reason you have a complex procedure. The procedure is pretty straightforward, even though it is complex. You have a linear pattern. So if you want to remove a CJI, the grounds which is explicitly mentioned in the Constitution is proved misbehavior or incapacity. But kindly note, it is not defined what it is supposed to mean in the Constitution of India. So if a motion, so what exactly is a motion is a methodology in which a discussion is started in a particular House of Parliament. So in Lok Sabha, at least 100 members and 50 members if it is to be in Rajya Sabha. Now, once the motion is passed, a committee will be constituted. Kindly note, as you could clearly see, the committee members will not be part of executive or legislature. They will be part of the judiciary itself. You have 2 Supreme Court judges and jurists. 2 reasons. First, you do not want external influence. And second thing is, only people who are expertise in judiciary itself will be able to judge properly whether the act of the particular Chief Justice of India is falling under proven misbehavior or incapacity. Then the motion for impeachment will be proceeded based on the committee recommendation. If the committee finds CJI to be guilty, the motion for impeachment will be passed. If not, the procedure stops right here. There is no more movement on this particular topic. So for motion for impeachment, kindly note the motion will have to be passed in each houses separately. And it has to be done with an absolute majority and two-thirds of the members present and voting. The reason you want a larger number is because it is not possible for the ruling party to have such a large majority in both the houses of parliament. So you want to make sure that a large number of people, that is the large number of ruling members, are convinced that the particular Chief Justice of India has clearly violated constitutional norms. So when a larger majority accepts that the CJI has actually violated constitutional norms, only then the impeachment motion can be passed. So again, you have a certain layer of protection to protect the independence of the judiciary, so that if the CJI acts against the whims and fancies of the ruling party alone, he's not impeached. And finally, once he's impeached, he is removed of his powers, and then by a direct presidential order, he is removed. Before we go to the next main topic, just a very quick look on what APEDA is. The issue was regarding the promotion of organic products. APEDA was an organization which was installed in the year 1986, and the actual objective is export promotion. And it has a comprehensive mandate, anything for export promotion, right from financial assistance, giving them training on marketing, giving them facilities for packaging. So everything associated with export is taken up by APEDA, a very comprehensive mandate. As you could clearly see, it is both agriculture and food processing. Now, what we tend to do is when we see the word agriculture, we tend to think that, okay, it is restricted only to agriculture, but that is not the case. It is a very elaborate organization. Agriculture and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority. So, and you can clearly see the mandate of products which is dealt by APEDA is also in various extremes, right? You have alcoholic beverages, you have cereals, you have dairy products, you have fruits and herbal products. So as you could clearly see, the mandate is very extensive. Now, when you find a list of 30 or 35, always make sure that you find the extremes. Once you find the extremes of products which are actually involved, then whatever falls within the pool will definitely come into the mandate. There will not be any much confusion at all. And finally, the ministry. When you talk about agriculture and food processing, you directly think that the ministry is the Ministry of Agriculture or Food Processing. But kindly note, really always think about the objective. The objective of the organization is export promotion. And you can clearly see that export promotion is the mandate of Ministry of Commerce and Industry. It is dealing with trade, and hence it will come under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Now we'll move to the issue. Now the issue is about the hindrance to development of organic exports in India. As you could clearly see, in the last 1 year, the organic exports have improved by 25%. Now, one of the reasons for hindrance, like why India is not able to exploit further than this particular percentage, is because APEDA does not accept self-certification and participatory guarantee system. Like what is PGS, a participatory guarantee system is? It is again a voluntary certification program where the cooperatives of farmers come together and evaluate their products and provide their own certification. It started as a voluntary organization and registered as a society, PGS, in the year 2011. So again, this is one more form of self-certification, and APEDA does not accept that. So that is acting as a hindrance, because if farmers need to get certification from third party, that is the recommendation of APEDA, only then you get it for exports. Now you should ask me the question, why should we get certification in the first place? Certification is important because it tells you the quality of the product. Because when a product goes to another nation or another entity, they'll be checking the level of pesticides or insecticides. There'll be prescribed levels. So you need to make sure that the levels of or the residues in your agricultural commodities or your processed food commodities is not exceeding the recommended level. That is the purpose of certification in the first place. And APEDA asks for third-party certification. It does not accept voluntary certification or certification by PGS, which is more of a cooperative way, which is also a kind of self-certification. So that is hindering the export of organic food products. Moving to the last topic in this particular issue, particular current affairs topic we are dealing with. The final one will be the vehicle scrap policy, which is proposed by the government of India. Now, before we go deeper into what exactly is proposed by the policy, just few things on what exactly is scrapping a car. Now, scrapping a car is pretty simple. You take out all the important components. You have a very old vehicle. You take out the important components. Take out the tires, air conditioners, radiators, and everything. And then it's kind of jammed. They place it in the crusher. It's crunked on one particular side. Then you have a tool coming up, and then you have an imperfect cuboid coming up. So it's completely a scrap metal. So that is the first part. Then pollution in India. As you could clearly see, pollution in India is not very good. The pollution index is extremely high, and you have, during severe winters, in many cities throughout India, the level of pollution is mentioned as extremely high, crossing the threshold limit. So at the same time, government has a problem because it has a limited scope in which you can work around. Pollution in India is very high, so hence we need to take measures to stop pollution. And there are measures like BS norms, that is true. But at the same time, it cannot have a blanket ban because that will affect the industry. So for finding a balance between combating pollution and matching the needs of the industry, you need to find a certain point, and that's where the vehicle scrapping policy comes in. It has been found that the 65% of pollution in India comes from medium and heavy vehicles, now heavy commercial vehicles. Now this year talking about trucks and buses. To be honest, they comprise only 2.5% of the vehicular population, but they contribute to 65% of the total emissions which are coming around. So we know that older vehicles are actually in the road, and if you take out the older vehicles by mandatory ban, then you're definitely replacing pollution. We'll see how it works. The proposed policy imposes a mandatory ban for 20-year vehicles. The policy is to come into picture in April 1, 2020. Which means 2020, which means when you talk about a 20-year ban on vehicles before 2000 or March 31st, 2000, which was registered, has to be mandatorily taken off the road. It is expected that the cost savings will be 15 to 20%. At the same time, you can ask me, so how is cost savings initiated and how does the policy enable us to have some sort of cost savings? We'll see how it is. Now, I've told you that the vehicle, which is more than 20 years old, has to be taken out of the road. So you need to phase it out in the first place. So if there is one entity who has an older vehicle, he goes to the dealer and he sells this vehicle. So once his vehicle is sold, the vehicle is sent to the scrapyard. And he'll be given a notification that he has actually sold that particular vehicle. Now, when this particular person who's holding an older vehicle or an older truck or bus, when he buys a new vehicle, there will be concessions for buying. Concessions for the newer vehicle of the same or pretty much approximately the same specifications. So that is what is the proposed policy. Now you clearly see that you're taking older vehicles off the road, which means you're increasing the sales of newer vehicles. That is number two, which means this industry, the automobile industry grows well. And you're also improving your storage of scrap steel or scrap metal, which means your imports will very much decrease. So if you see, it is pretty comprehensively, it is affecting all the domains and contributing to the development of the nation. And if it seems very good, but the industry experts are hitchy about few points, we'll see what are the important points which they mention. First thing is they say that 20 years might not be very effective. Most people say that, most industry experts feel that maybe March 1, 2005, a 15 years cutoff date, a mandatory ban for 15 years would be very good because the number of vehicles which are more than 20 years old, their proportion is extremely less. So when you take about a smaller proportion of vehicles, a very small proportion of vehicles and replace it with new ones, you may not have effectively reduced your pollution or improve the sales of the automobile industry. That is the first thing. Second is BS6 norms. Now you know that when you talk about cutoff date, April 1, 2020, BS6 norms are envisioned to be implemented. When BS Bharat standard norms are predominantly for reducing the level of pollution or improving your emission standards. So when you improve your emission standards, it means your vehicles have to be better. They will have to reduce their emissions, which means the technology which will be used in their vehicles will be higher. And again, if your technology is higher, which means the cost of the vehicle goes up. So whatever 15 to 20% savings which is envisioned by this particular thing will be compensated by BS6 norms because a new vehicle is higher. Then finally, rural area vehicles. It is believed that most of the vehicles which are more than 20 years is actually predominantly running is from rural areas, and people who are in rural areas might not have enough financial resources to go for a newer vehicle. So based on these reasons, industry experts feels that the envisioned policy may not be that effective, but actual numbers of the policy is not clearly known. As you could see, the minister had only said that there will be an expected revenue of 10,000 crores is to be generated. That is the only mention, but actual part of the policy will get only later. It has gone for the approval note of the cabinet, note of the PMO, and then it will have to go to the GST council, and only then we'll get the final policy. So that's the end of today's current affairs discussion. Thanks for your time and patience.